What I am is an expert on what to do if you get bitten by a venomous snake. I've been working with this company for 6 years now. We're the only makers and manufacturers of the antivenom used in the United States of America. We're going to talk about a lot of myths and misconceptions that are out there in terms of treating snake bites, what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't do, and what you've heard that's right, what you've heard that is wrong when it comes to treating snake bites. Hopefully this will all make sense to you in the end. We're going to have lots of time for questions and hopefully some answers as well. I'll let you know there's no dumb questions. I got a lot of dumb answers though, so we'll see if we can do pretty good with that stuff. So types of snakes we're going to be talking about, man, today are rattlesnakes, copperheads, and water moccasins. These are all known as pit vipers. They're in the class of Crotalidae. We're not going to worry about too much of the genus and species of that kind of stuff, but we're talking about rattlesnakes, copperheads, and water moccasins, and they all kind of have the same type of characteristic with them. This is the one thing I can tell you. Here you go. Come on in. So, all these types of snakes have triangular heads, elliptical eyes, a heat-sensing pit. I'm going to show you pictures of all these as well. And your rattlesnakes have a rattle, which may or may not rattle. I hear this all the time as well. I'm sure you guys have heard this out in the country too, that some of your snakes aren't rattling as much. All I can say on that is the place where we milk the snakes to make the antivenom, we have a certain type of rattlesnake called the Mojave rattlesnake, which is found out in California, and also the Big Bend part of Texas. It's a rattlesnake, but it doesn't rattle very loud at all. In fact, when you walk into the room to see where it gets milked, it's almost impossible to hear, which is kind of scary to think you can walk up on a rattlesnake and not make any noise out there and it can strike you. So it is possible for these snakes not to rattle. Whether or not they are actually learning that or not, I just don't know the answer to it, but I have heard that as well out in the field. But here's kind of what we're talking about. The triangular head, the elliptical eyes, and here's that heat-sensing pit. Let me tell you this, if you're that close to see a snake, you are something wrong with you. Yes, ma'am, question.
Where's the pit?
The pit.
You were in the way, big tall.
Right here, that's the heat-sensing pit.
Oh.
This is like a little infrared radar imaging thing. This is how they find their prey. All right, this is going to identify something they can eat and swallow. As such, when they come across a human being with a big, huge heat signature, if they're an old enough snake to have learned this, they will recognize, I can't eat you. And we'll talk about how it's going to play the role in young snakes versus older snakes. But this is how they're going to hunt their prey down. One of the things I'm going to tell you, or I need to tell you also, the one type of snake that my antivenom will not cover is coral snakes, and that's the one that's red and yellow that's around here as well. There's a poem for it. I'll tell you, I did not do very well in school. That's why I'm in sales. So I have a much easier poem than what you learn for coral snakes, and it's kind of a really, really short. It doesn't really even rhyme. It's the following: snake run. I think that every snake is the most deadly snake in the world. I'm not going to take time to look and count, is that red and yellow or is that red and black? I'm out of there, all right? I would suggest you do the same thing because I don't want to take time to identify these guys. Coral snakes, by the way, there's no producer of coral snake antivenom right now in the United States. There is one in Mexico, so that your hospitals do have, they can possibly get that. What little antivenom is available for coral snakes is very, very sparse. We're not even sure where it's located, and it's been expired for a couple of years now, but the FDA keeps extending that expiration date. So if you happen to get bit by a coral snake, there's some things that you need to know about. We'll talk about that later as well, if we can, if you're interested in knowing what to do. So should you be worried? It's like talking to people about going to the ocean and getting bit by a shark, or talking to somebody saying you're going to win the lottery. Your chances of any of these happening are slim to none. There's about 9,000 venomous snake bites every year in North America. 50 states, 9,000, that's just not a whole lot of snake bites that happen. Of those 9,000, how many people every year do you think die from venomous snake bites? I'm going to put you on the spot. How many do you think die?
10.
10. How about you?
I don't have no idea. All of them.
All of them, that's a great answer. Because before I started this job, I thought if you got bit by a rattlesnake, you were toast. That you were just immediately going to die and you had no positive outcomes. On average, we have 6 deaths per year from venomous snake bites. You need to know that, your family members need to know that. Of those people who die from snake bites, it's usually because they refuse treatment or because they get bit. I'm going to tell you this right now.
Heart attack.
My heart attack could be a
It's a heart
possible
attack,
outcome.
yeah.
My biggest abusers of snake bites, and we'll call them abusers of snake bites, are young, drunk males. They are an excellent resource for me to have my job. And a lot of times when they get bitten, they tend to be a little bit over inebriated in the first place. They tend to pass out, and those are the ones that don't wake up and possibly die from a snake bite. Point being, if you get bitten, get to a hospital. We have treatments for you available. If you get that treatment, you're most likely not going to die. You're most not likely not to even lose a finger or a limb. Okay? I get talking a little bit fast sometimes. My tongue can't keep up. But here's the problem with these venomous snakes. And here's what people don't realize. The snakes have a venom for a very particular reason. They don't have arms. They don't have legs to go chase their prey down. They have to use that venom to help them kill their prey. So when they strike a little mouse or a field rabbit, that venom is going to put that prey into shock and drop that prey, but not immediately. That prey is going to wander off after a while because it got stung by something, and that snake is going to use that heat-sensing pit to track that prey down. And then when they get to it, and it's passed out and on the ground and out and writhing and doing whatever, but it can't move anymore, that snake is going to open up and swallow that prey whole.
Ew.
Yeah, right at lunchtime we're going to talk about this. You gotta like that. And these snakes don't have a row of teeth like we do either. They have these two fangs that pop out, and the snake opens his mouth. And the reason they swallow that prey whole is because they can't chew it up. And what does chewing do for us? It begins the digestive process. It helps us, as people are eating right now, it helps us break down the food so that we can absorb the nutrients from that food. Well, if you can't chew the food up, you gotta have some way to digest that food. And so that's what the venom does. It begins to break down the skin, the muscle, all the tissues of that animal so that the snake can then absorb it. Well, what does that mean for you? This is digestion of skin and muscle and tissue that is taking place in human beings when they get bitten by one of these types of snakes. You're talking about tissue death, possible amputation, possible life loss if it's not treated in the appropriate time. And this is
What time frame are we looking at?
that is variable. Every snake bite is going to be different depending upon whether the snake actually had venom, how soon they've eaten, how deep the puncture was, how close it is to the lymphatic system to get passed around the entire body. One of the things we tell our nursing staffs when we do in-services is when you get a snake bite patient, that patient needs to stay in the hospital for at least 8 hours if they're not showing signs and symptoms right away, because the venom can literally hide in the tissue for hours. And you may be going home back to Yoakum, Texas, and all of a sudden your limbs just go whoop, and you're in trouble. So you have to stay in the, we just don't know when it's gonna produce and start showing itself. But if you start to see stuff like that, not good, you need to get antivenom. We do have an antivenom that's gonna address this stuff, and it works very, very well. We're happy to have that. But we have to fight a lot of misinformation out there of things that have been drummed into our heads since we were little kids and Boy Scouts and the movies. One, do not cut the wound open and suck out the venom. One, I don't know why you'd want to suck out the venom in the first place. You gotta be a really good friend or really, really inebriated to want to do that. You have no idea how much venom the snake put into the patient, so sucking it out is not gonna do you any good. And if you have a cut in your mouth, now I've got 2 patients instead of 1. All right, so do not cut and suck. Just gross, all right? 2, this one is always a complicated one. No tourniquets, none. I know we've all been taught this. Do not tourniquet your patients. Why? Well, if I have a severely digested agent in my hand and I tourniquet myself right here, that means I've just concentrated that digestive agent in that one spot, and this spot's gonna get really, really nasty. I would rather rattlesnake venom dilute itself to your whole body as opposed to being concentrated in one little area. Coral snake's a whole different game, and we can talk about that again later in questions and answers. Last one, you don't have to bring the snake to the hospital. All right? I would like somebody to go catch it, bring it, so I can possibly have another snake bite and make some more money off it, but you don't have to do that, all right? Just get your butt to the hospital. The one antivenom that we have works on all your venomous snake bites, rattlesnakes, copperheads, and water moccasins. Again, coral snakes, it doesn't. There's very, very few coral snake bites in the first place. So if you get bit by a snake and you're not sure what happened, just go to the hospital. They've been trained. If they see certain signs and symptoms, boom, we're gonna give you antivenom regardless of what bit you, because it's gonna work for those signs and symptoms. Okay? I'm gonna stop right here because I want to see if everybody's on the same page and what kind of questions I can answer right now before I go on. Questions you guys have so far? Yes,
That
sir.
antivenom is it the same for all snakes, or y'all have a different antivenom for each snake?
So what we do is we milk 4 different types of snakes: the Western Diamondback, the Mojave, the Eastern Diamondback, and the water moccasin. The reason we use those 4 snakes is 2 of those snakes are found most commonly in the western half of the United States: your Mojave rattlesnake and your Western Diamondback. 2 of those snakes are most commonly found in the eastern part of the United States: your Eastern Diamondback and your water moccasin. We milk all 4 of those snakes. We then inject sheep with this venom. And these sheep build up antibodies specific to those toxins that are in those 4 types of snakes. Then we take those antibodies out of the sheep, and that's what gets infused in you. Well, what does that mean? Any rattlesnake, copperhead, water moccasin, copperhead that bites a patient in North America only has to get 1 antivenom because it's going to cover all of those different types of species of snakes. Yes, sir.
Is it true, what I've heard, that a baby rattlesnake is worse than a grown or a full-size rattlesnake?
So the way I'll answer that question is kind of complicated. If you look at their venom chemically, you put it under gas chromatograph, and you look at the toxins and the peaks and the troughs and the different types of components of their venom are exactly the same for a baby snake and an adult snake, meaning it's not more potent. The problem is that heat-sensing pit. The babies haven't recognized, I can't eat this guy. He's way too big. So almost every time they bite and they strike, if they have venom in them, they're going to inject that venom to the patient. So your adult snakes they may not do that. I have a story about that. So these campers, these Boy Scouts were going camping in Utah. And being boys, they come across a snake, and what do? They pick it up. The first kid picks it up and gets bit. Drops it. His buddy says, I'll pick it up, I want to get bit. Boom, he gets bit. Third one does the same. Which of those 3 got envenomated? Third. The first 2 were warning strikes. Don't mess with me. I'm getting mad. Good luck. All right? Your older snakes have realized they don't have to envenomate every single time. Well, what does that mean through the community throughout the ages? Well, people get bit by baby snakes are most likely going to have a reaction. So your baby snakes must be that bad. There's no data to show that, but I will go back to my original poem, Snake Run. To me, they're all mad. Don't get bit by any one of them. All right? That's a common question. Another one.
Another thing, I saw this video, it's been probably 30 years ago, where it showed a balloon, and a rattlesnake would hit that balloon twice before the air goes out of the balloon.
Wow, I know
Are they that quick?
They're extremely quick. I've seen them in our cages before at our facility, and yeah, it's amazing how you could walk by them and not know they're there and get tagged and not look back and not even know what bit you. They are that fast, lightning quick, which is opposite of your coral snakes. Your coral snakes, if you get bit by a coral snake or one of your family members get bit by a coral snake, they're gonna know. It's not gonna strike at them, it's gonna bite them, latch on, and grind, and you're gonna have to pull that sucker off. All right? That's why it's much more difficult to get bit by a coral snake than it is to get bit by a pit viper, especially like a rattlesnake or a copperhead. They're just so fast, and they're very territorial, very scared. I have a question back there as well.
Is it true that if you have to use the antivenom, that you can never use it again?
That is not a true statement. That's another one of those things that's a misconception that's out there, which is good for you guys to know. If we have any snake handlers in here that love snakes and go out and chase them, because there are in some places, I run across them. I don't understand it, but I respect it. We have a case study of a guy in Denver, Colorado. And this is just the reported times that he got antivenom. 19 different times he received the antivenom. The efficacy, meaning the results that the antivenom had, never dropped off, and the adverse events never went up, so it worked like it was supposed to do, and it didn't cause a third eye or a bunny tail to start growing out of him. So it was good to go. So yes, you can receive it more than one time, which is good to know. Yes, sir.
What's the time limit to finally get bitten by snakes and time you have to go to the hospital?
So it's recommended from our clinical trials 6 hours or less. All right, time is tissue. The quicker you get to the hospital, I'm gonna repeat that last phrase again. Time is tissue. The longer it takes for you to get to the hospital and to get antivenom once you start showing signs and symptoms, the more tissue that dies. And we can't repair that tissue. You're gonna see nasty little scars from people who have been bitten, possibly even fingers have been chopped off. Get to the hospital as quick as you can and hope your hospital's been trained how to treat a snake bite. Get there quickly. What happens if it's longer than 6 hours? That's also a question we normally get. If it's longer than 6 hours and you're still showing signs and symptoms, then the hospital is still advised to get antivenom, as long as you're showing the signs and symptoms. All right. Yes, sir.
Another question, out of the 3 snakes, are any of them hunters, where they come and hunt you?
So that's where I'm gonna go back to my days of not being a snake expert, but I'm gonna rely on some snake experts that I've actually heard talk before, especially about water moccasins being aggressive. I'm the same as you guys. If I see a water moccasin, I'm going the other way. But I got an expert, a snake handler in Austin, who swears he's never seen a water moccasin attack somebody or even bite somebody. The numbers back that up. Water moccasins are the lowest number in terms of snake bite victims or snake bite cases that we have. The number one culprit in terms of venomous snake bites in North America, copperheads. They're the absolute number one. Second being rattlesnakes, and distant third is water moccasins. So your snake experts will tell you that none of the snakes are aggressive. They're defensive in posture, and that's why they're gonna rattle and let you know about them. And they only strike if they feel threatened or cornered. I don't believe them. That's what they say. All right, I'm gonna see what else is up here. We'll come back for some more questions.
A comment down on the moccasins. I've had an area that had a lot of moccasins. I've killed in excess of 100, and I've never felt like one of them was aggressive toward me. I've looked at my eyes, fallen out. But they always say that, and I say, well, I'm not
There's
very
water snakes and water moccasins.
Yeah, that's the key.
Water snakes is not aggressive, but when as a young boy, we'll be in a creek, if we're near maybe a nest of water moccasin, she will aggress you. She will go after you.
Well, I think any parent would be that way as well. They're going to be protecting their young as well. But I'll go back to my statement earlier. I just get away from all of them as fast as I can, and I don't want to see any of them at all. The one thing I can't stress enough is if you get bit or if your family member gets bit, go to the nearest hospital. It doesn't matter which hospital you go to in the state of Texas. So I cover, if you look at the state of Texas, I cover from Brownsville over to Del Rio, all the way up to Hillsborough, over to Hamilton. So I've got a big little area of Central and South Texas that I cover. And every hospital in my territory has antivenom, enough to get you started, including Cueros, including Gonzales. Get to a hospital as quick as you can. If you're out hunting in South Texas, go to Carrizo Springs. They've got antivenom. They got a lot of antivenom out there in Carrizo Springs. They all have enough to start you and then transfer you to a big institution like Brackenridge in Austin, University Hospital in San Antonio, Victoria, Corpus, wherever you're closest to. They'll transfer you to the bigger institution that has more antivenom, bigger ICUs that they can actually keep you in and monitor you. But that's going to be the key. Just get to the nearest hospital as quickly as you can. Don't elevate it. Don't put ice. There's a big, how many of you ever heard about electric shock for treating antivenom or for treating snake bites? We got one guy, got some shakings back here. That's a big misconception as well. I need to address that one because if you Google treating snake bites, that's one of the things that will pop up. And the reason it pops up is because there's a medical missionary who did a trip down to Ecuador. He didn't have access to all the medicines that we have here in the United States, but he also knew there were a lot of snake bites in Ecuador. And he started remembering back in his university days that there's an electrical charge to venom, a positive and negative charge, a polarization of it. He thought if I can reverse that charge, I can keep my patients from having venomous effects. And so he started hooking his patients up to a boat battery that he found and shocking the mess out of them. And son of a gun, not one single patient had venomous effects in Ecuador. And he wrote a little letter to this medical journal called Lancet in England, who happened to publish this paper without studying what actually was going on down in Ecuador. And so physicians here in the States started shocking their patients with not quite the same outcome. In fact, all their patients had venomous effects after shocking them. So they went down to Ecuador and found out that the snakes down in Ecuador are all non-venomous snakes. And we all laugh at that, except for the fact that a Texas Ranger pulled me aside one day saying, I'm going hunting down in South Texas and I got a stun gun. Do you think that'll work? And that stuff is out there to this day. So much misinformation out there.
They came out with a device.
Yeah, they sell a shock kit.
Yeah, absolutely. They still sell suction kits for snakes too. That is if you want to make some money, put snake treatment on the side of it, and you can probably make some money off it. Will it work? No. All right. Everything I present to you is data-based, data-driven over 15 years of evidence-based medicine, best treatment outcomes for treating patients. All right, as opposed to what somebody heard and what somebody possibly tried to do. What was that? Oh yeah. So, there's a lot of information out there that you guys need to know about. And some of it can be found on this beautiful little app that we have called Snakebite 911. This is available on the Apple Store or the Google Store. It's for free. And it has everything you need to know about treating a snake bite in the community, such as pre-treatment. All right? The first words you see on this pre-treatment, I'm gonna let you just read the first couple words on every single one of them. What does it say?
Do not, do not, do not, do not, do not.
Do not, do not, do not. Everything you've heard in Boy Scouts and church groups, don't do it. Just get yourself to a hospital. It also has, the really cool part, a hospital locator. And I've turned off my app, my settings app. It'll find where you are and it will geolocate. You can find the hospital nearby. Oh, it actually is turned on, Quero Hospital. This is hospitals that actually have antivenom in-house so that you can go there and get treated. And there's a whole list of hospitals. You can see all these I'm scrolling through. All these hospitals around this area that have ordered antivenom here recently. Also, and you were asking about this earlier, you can pull up the states of the union, all 50 states. Whoopsie, go back. And you can scroll down to where your state is, which is the state of Texas. Hit the wrong state again, Texas. And you can find the most common pit vipers in your state, including the copperheads, and it will show you pictures. It will also give you where they're most commonly found and their average size. And here is, I never knew, how many people think that the water moccasin is black? I always did. It's not. It's this nice little cool color right here. I had no clue that's what a water moccasin is.
What's the black snake with the white one?
That's
Just
that's the cottonmouth. That's
like
what this
a
is.
mature one or what?
I don't know
is
the
that?
difference, but this, I didn't know this either until
So
the
they
snake
are
expert.
black too, but they're that and black.
I don't know if they're black. It sounds, are you a snake expert?
No, but the snake you had up there earlier, that's what I've always seen a water moccasin look like.
That's what I thought too. This is what, in fact, we had a snake guy come out and he brought a whole bunch of water moccasins and every single one of them looked like this. Every single one of them.
I'd say the ones in DeWitt County are darker than that. They have a pattern,
Yeah.
but they're darker than
And it
that.
may be that way. And then here's
More
the,
like the one you had in the picture up on the screen.
That one's just been eating shrimp, that's why.
he was happy. And here's the big bad Western Diamondback. It also has a pretty cool little function. If you get bit out in the field, can I see your hand real quick? You can take a picture of where you got bit, and it will put a timestamp on there. And if you happen to take 2 or more pictures, photo, you can actually help your hospital out by taking pictures of how the venom is progressing up the limb, and that will help them to identify whether or not to give you antivenom or not. It's great for your EMS and first responders to have as well. That way you can help the physicians out and the hospitals out when they get to the nearest hospital. All right.
So is it true, don't run? I mean, after you've been bitten?
There's no recommendation as to running or walking. I know if you're out in the woods by yourself, get as quickly as you can out of there. Get to some place where you can call your EMS or whatever. This is not a neurotoxin though, so you're not going to be shutting down the systems of your body.
It's okay to drive yourself.
It's not recommended. It's not recommended just because you never know what's
You
going to
have
happen.
to.
Because hypotension is one of the common signs and symptoms of it. We don't want you to pass out if you're driving. But yes, if you have no other option, get yourself to the hospital by driving. All right. If you're out in the woods somewhere, call EMS. If you can't get to EMS, walk somewhere, run somewhere to where you can get to calling EMS. All right. This is like a 500,000 foot view as to what to do for snake bites. Everything I've told you up here is not going to cover what questions you have, and questions tend to bring out a lot more conversation than the boring little topic that I gave. So I'm going to open up to questions now, and let's see where we can go with this. We've got one already.
Does it help to elevate?
So elevation, a couple things happen with that. We just learned this. If you elevate, like this got bit here and we're trying to bring the swell down, well, guess where the venom gets depoted at? Right here in this crease. And you'll see massive venom effects in that crease right there. So if you're gonna elevate, it needs to be in a straight line, which can kind of be uncomfortable, but definitely elevate after antivenom has started. That's the key.
Where do you ship from? Where does your antivenom come from?
So we have a facility at the University of Utah where we house over 1,200, 1,600 venomous snakes that they're milked from. Those snakes are in a biosecure facility. You can't just walk in there. There's very few people know actually where it even exists. So you have to have credentials to go in there, and they're monitored by veterinarians every single day, monitored on what they are fed and how they are acting, all that kind of stuff. Milk the snakes there. The venom's then sent over to whales to get processed and cleaned up so that they get rid of all the impurities. Then that venom is shipped down to Australia, where we have our sheep farm. And you have to ask yourself, are there not sheep in Utah? Are there not sheep in Wales? And there are, but the sheep in Australia have not been exposed to mad cow disease. And so it's a much purer, much cleaner, much safer antivenom that you're throwing out from those sheep. We're eliminating some fear there. Then that stuff is taken back to Wales, where it's processed again to get cleaned up, where it's not going to have so many side effects, and then sent back to Baltimore, where it's put to a powder form. For the time that we milk a snake, and I say we, I don't milk the snakes ever, I don't want to go there. The time they milk a snake, the time it becomes a bottle of antivenom, takes 3 years. They're milking snakes today for antivenom 3 years from now. All right? You'll hear these reports of outrageous hospital bills. Each vial of Crofab, which is the antivenom, I'll try to say the names, I'm not trying to promote our product, but each vial of antivenom costs the hospital $2,700. On average, it takes 12 vials to treat a patient. All right, so don't get bit. It is covered by insurance, but don't get bit. It's not a cheap thing. The problem is hospitals turn around and charge the patient about 3 to 4 times higher than what they actually paid for it. And that's where you start seeing these high bills associated with snakebite. But I want you to know there's a reason why the antivenom costs what it does. We literally have 2 guys up in that lab who milk 75 snakes a day. Imagine that in your head, getting a box down, putting it on a table, popping the box open and standing back because you got a ticked off snake in there that's about to ratchet itself out of there. And then grabbing it, putting it on the floor, because you have to shoo it into a glass tube so the snake doesn't hurt itself, because we don't want to injure the snake. Heaven forbid to do that. All right? Put him in the glass tube where his head can come out, and then pry his mouth open, get those fangs out, and then have him produce his venom. 75 times a day they have to do that. There's only 2 guys that do that. That's it. So that's kind of the reason why the cost is what it is. It's very expensive to make.
Each snake, they do this over and over to the same snake?
That's why we have over 1,200 species of snakes in there to rotate. They get built about once every 3 or 4 weeks. They have to build their venom back up. Yes, sir.
I'm not familiar with water moccasins, but is it strictly water, or do they land?
Oh, they'll bite you on land. I'm pretty sure they can bite you in the water as well.
They'll come out. They'll come out on land.
Mm-hmm. But again,
But is there a major, I guess, environment, the water?
I think they're only found in water areas. That's what if you're in water areas, there's a possibility there's going to be a water moccasin. You're not going to find a water moccasin typically away from the water. They're going to only be found in watering areas.
Something I have heard, and I don't know, you're not a snake person, but
I've
maybe
heard a
you
lot
all
about
know. I've heard that if it's a venomous snake in water, it can sit still on the top. Have y'all heard this? If it's non-venomous, it has to keep moving. But do you know anything about that?
I don't know about
All
that.
snakes will be
Anybody?
on top.
Nobody's heard that?
Any water snake will stay on top just to be looking around like an alligator.
Without moving?
Yeah, without
I'd heard
moving,
one of the
they'll
other sinks.
But down underneath, they are moving. They're trying to keep their head afloat, you know? They are moving in the water.
But if I'm in the water with something on the water or under it, I don't care. I'm out of the water. I'm not gonna diagnose. Oh, I think he's all the way out of the water. I'm just out of there. See ya. Yes, ma'am.
You had touched on different treatment ideas with coral snakes. Were you going to say that a tourniquet would be a good thing for a coral bite?
Since it is a neurotoxin, yes. And coral snake bites are only about 2% of all the venomous snake bites in North America. Very, very rare snake bite, but they do happen. It's a neurotoxin, so it's going to shut down your airway. It's going to shut down your motor system, your musculature. You're going to get real droopy and lazy. It's going to be very difficult to breathe. And literally, if there's no antivenom, what they're going to do for you is they're going to put a tube in you, and they're going to mechanically breathe for you for 3, 7, 10 days until your body gets rid of that antivenom on its own. But yes, that's why it's important. Wherever you get bit by a coral snake, you don't want that to get into your bloodstream, into your lymphatic system. You don't want it to start shutting things down. So that's the one snake that you want to tourniquet here in North America. Yes, sir.
The only other question, I know we're talking about humans, but rattlesnake bites of cows, dogs, stuff like that, is it the same antivenom?
They can definitely use our antivenom. It's extremely expensive. Some people think their animals are worth that. I've got 2 little red terrier dogs. If they got bit, I'd probably pony up for that too, just because I don't want to see my wife and daughter start bawling their eyes out. But there's definitely some animals, some hunting dogs have been trained, and they're very, very expensive. So yeah, you can use the antivenom for them. It's about $1,500 per vial that you have to pay out of pocket because insurance doesn't cover that. Horses, cows, the same thing. It's just going to be dependent upon how much you want to spend to save them. Animals seem to do better without any type of treatment. I hear of dogs being bitten all the time. They're going to swell up, they get really, really swollen, slough off some of that skin. But I don't hear of a lot of dog deaths unless it's just a bite that gets right into the bloodstream and then just knocks them out. I'm getting some people shaking their heads back there too that seem to agree. But again, that's one of those things I can't prove. That's typically what I hear.
I have a Jack Russell, been bit 5 times by copperhead and once by rattlesnake, and he won't die.
That's great. Yes, sir.
I think the point is you can sever a head snake from his body and he can still bite you.
Absolutely. In fact, many, many stories of people playing, and of course, all the stories I hear about people playing with the head after cutting him off are a drunk man again that picks up the head and they're, oh, look at this, look it up. I'm going to kiss the snake, and all of a sudden the snake falls off, the mouth opens up. So it's not the snake that actually will bite him, it possibly could, but just that the mouth is opening up, those fangs pop out and might nick them. And that's how they're going to become envenomated. So yeah, the best advice is to cut it off and bury it as far as you can and just get away from that thing. And I have another question behind you, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say for the vets now offer a rattlesnake
Yes,
booster
they do.
that you can give them beforehand, and then they said it will lessen their effects.
It's like a flu shot for the dogs. If they get the flu, after we get a flu shot, they will get the flu. It's not going to be as bad. We can still get the flu, but it's not going to cause us that much damage. The dog rattlesnake vaccine is supposed to be the same. They'll attenuate some of the symptoms and not make it where they're as likely to die. And I think it's pretty cheap too, like $30, $40. They get it once a year to boost them up, so that is available.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody believe a snake will bite you underwater?
I've heard that. I don't want to be around to know it, but I've heard it.
I've been bitten on the heel, but I jerked away just as it was gonna bite me underwater. But I've also seen them fight over a bullfrog underwater. The water that deep and standing about 10 feet high, they're fighting over that bullfrog. So they will bite you underwater.
That's what I've heard as well. Yes, ma'am.
So say like if you get bit and you don't know if it was venomous, you still come to the hospital, are they gonna treat you or they're gonna wait?
So they have been trained here at Cuero that they're going to now identify certain signs and symptoms. So say you got bit here and you weren't sure what type of snake it was that bit you. Well, first of all, it's a non-venomous snake. Most likely it's going to have some sort of teeth on it. For sure, if you find 1 or 2 puncture marks like this, we know it was most likely a venomous pit viper because they're the ones that have the 2 fangs that pop out. But still, they're going to mark it and probably circle around where the leading edge of swelling is, and they're going to go in every 15 to 20 minutes and mark and measure to see if you have redness and swelling that is moving up the limb. So if they start to see that there's a line of swelling and redness that's moving up that limb, that is a definite sign right then and there that you've been envenomated by one of these types of snakes, and they should begin treatment of you right away. They'll also take a lab draw when you admit to the hospital. They're going to look at your platelets and fibrinogen. I haven't talked about this because I didn't want to get too medically intense with you guys, but rattlesnake venom, your platelets are used to clot your blood whenever you have a cut on you. Rattlesnake venom is made to make their prey completely lose their blood so that they can die quicker. And as a result, when a human gets bit, your platelets drop like crazy, which means you have an inability to clot as effectively. And so you'll start to see platelet levels just drop drastically, which means you're now at risk for bleeding out, basically. So they'll take a lab draw and they'll try to identify, are your platelets dropping? If they are, then yeah, they need to start giving advent right away. Also, they'll look for certain systemic signs like nausea and vomiting. If you get bit by a non-venomous snake, you're most likely not going to be vomiting. You may be a little sick to the stomach, but you're not going to be vomiting. The reason you're vomiting is because you have this poison in your body that your body's violently reacting to. That's not a normal situation for a grass snake to have to cause you to vomit. Hypotension is also another common characteristic. Blood pressure going really, really low. That shouldn't happen if you get bit by a non-venomous snake. You'll be more hypertensive, like, oh my God, I just got bit by a snake, and it's going to cause your blood pressure to kind of skyrocket. So those are all certain signs and symptoms they'll look for without even knowing what the snake was. If you start to exhibit those, they're going to be thinking antivenom. If you don't have them, They're gonna sit there and monitor you for at least 8 hours, hopefully, before they kick you out of the hospital. Just in case that venom starts to show up later on, we want to be able to treat it. Make sense? Yes, ma'am.
I have it for children, for small children. If they get bit versus an adult, how much, is there a change in the time frame or in the, I mean, they can still get the same dosage of antivenom and everything's the same? Or?
So, how old are you, ma'am? 10 years old. All right. Stand up for me real quick. I'm not gonna make you come up here. Let's just, and what's your name? What's your name?
Paige.
Paige. So if Paige is walking along and steps on a snake, as opposed to me, that snake doesn't look up and go, oh, that's Paige. She's not as big as John, so I'm gonna give her a little bit of venom. They're gonna give her the same amount of venom that they're gonna give me. All right, you can sit up, guys. I'm sorry I embarrassed you, Paige, but thank you very much. You proved a point. We're not treating the size of the patient. We're treating the size of the venom. So your kids are gonna get the exact same dosing that an adult patient would get, because we got to eliminate all that venom, and we've got to assume that the snake put the same amount of venom in her that put it in me, because there's no way of knowing. So kids get the exact same treatment, even if it's a little bit toddler, or even if it's an infant, we all get the same amount of antivenom in our body.
Another question, hasn't been brought up yet, but a lot of people think they're doing a good deed by running over a snake.
Amen.
And I heard like a rattlesnake can actually bite your tire, and eventually you can just like rub your tire like that and still get the venom.
I haven't heard that one. And typically what I'll tell people is if you have to kill a snake, you're really affecting my bottom line, which is kind of a bad joke. But yeah, snakes are they have a purpose and a reason for being there. We're kind of in their territory. They were here much longer than we were. But as long as we leave them alone, they should leave us alone. I'm not sure about biting a tire and puncturing, because I've never seen that myself. But I have seen them on gas stations, on the gas handles when you're pulling out the gas to get you the pump the car. I've heard about them being in a tree at Lowe's and falling out of a tree and biting someone, and Walmart being in their parking lot. So we're in their territory just as much as they're in our territory. You just have to pay attention and be respectful and not try to go get them. I will tell you one of the best. I heard a snake expert tell this about snake treatments for your yard. There is nothing that will work. People talk about moth repellent or some sort of spray you put down. He says the biggest calls he gets are for people that have put stuff around their yard, and they'll come and remove snakes from moth-ridden yards. They just don't care. They're going to get into your yard no matter what. The best thing you can do to keep snakes out of your yard is to keep their food source out of your yard. If you have bird feeders, I was like, why would bird feeders create a food source? Well, the pellets draw in squirrels and rats and other stuff that is their food source. You eliminate that, you're going to hopefully eliminate some of the snakes in your area. Wood piles, rock piles, they love to live in those areas. Get rid of those, you can hopefully eliminate your source of food and shelter for the snake as well. But doing just common sense things like that will help get rid of the snakes. Otherwise, you're just drawing them in and keeping them in there.
There are a lot of people get bit from gardens.
Absolutely
and,
do.
Flower beds.
So
they're very crowded, and they reach in there to clean.
Besides young drunk males being my number one thing, is gardening is the next one. Because every time I go to clean out my garden, my flower bed, I tell my wife, all right, today's the day. Get ready to take me to the hospital, because they love it. It's cool. It's damp. They can hide out there. They can slither out when they need to get some sun. But it's a great place for snakes to be. Absolutely.
How about noise? Does that? Like if you go out there and yell, does that snake go away?
I would think so, just because they're scared.
Do they hear?
The one thing in terms of respect I learned for snakes was when I went to our snake farm in Utah. They have them in these clear cages, and when I walked through first I had to pick myself up after passing out from going in there. But the snakes weren't striking the cage. They were in a more defensive posture. They were going backwards. They were rattling like crazy, trying to let me know that they're there, and they don't want me to come closer. They don't want me to get close to them. So I'm just going to assume, the more noise I can make when I go out to my flower bed, I'm rustling stuff around. I have no idea if that works or not, but in my head, it makes me feel safer. So, yes, ma'am?
If you are taking warfarin and the snake's already should you tell them to give you vitamin K shot?
There's no dosing adjustment needed for patients who are really insufficient, hepatically insufficient, who are on warfarin or Plavix or anything like that, because you're going to have a baseline level once you come to the hospital, and that's what we're going to judge you on. Is that baseline level dropping from there? Are you having even lower platelet counts than you did when you originally came in? You're going to be a little bit low on platelets anyways when you're taking warfarin, correct? That's,
Gonna be what?
you're gonna be a little bit low on platelets since you're taking warfarin, but you're still gonna have a baseline level. And if we see those platelets begin to drop even more, that's gonna be a sign that yes, you've been envenomated, and now you need to have Crofab. You could give platelets to a patient that's been envenomated, but if they still have venom in the body, that venom's just gonna chomp them up anyways and eat them up. So the first thing you have to do is get the venom out of the body, and then you address whether or not they need more warfarin or more platelets or whatever. Does that sort of make sense?
But would vitamin K help? Isn't that the shot you get, you have to?
The only thing that's gonna help first is to get to the, I can't tell the management afterwards what to do. All I can say is until we stop that venom from chomping up the platelets, you're doing no good. You have to address the venom first, and then you deal with the next issue that you're dealing with, which is gonna be your original blood levels. I see some shaking heads over here about the nursing staff. Hopefully they're agreeing with me as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do I know I'm not allergic to the Crofab?
So the only contraindication for Crofab, which is the antivenom, is if you're allergic to papaya, pineapple, or the enzyme bromelain, which is found in those types of fruits. So if you have a fruit allergy, make it known to your nursing staff and physicians when you get to the hospital. But even that means you don't necessarily not have to get Crofab. If you're showing signs of envenomation, then the risk-benefit means if we can control that anaphylactic reaction with some epi, then the benefit of treating you with Crofab outweighs the risk of that anaphylactic reaction.
Okay.
It's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
Why is there that correlation, like a fruit allergy versus what? Why is that?
So there was a previous antivenom that was out there before the year 2001. It was made by a company called Wyeth, and it was a very, very toxic antivenom. So and I get some people shaking their heads back there, they're familiar with it. If you gave this antivenom, there's a chance that you were gonna kill the patient more with the antivenom than you were with the venom itself. Our company recognized that one of the reasons was because of the entire IgG antibody, which is getting way too thick in the weeds. But if you give the entire IgG antibody to a patient, they're gonna recognize the foreign proteins in their body, and they're gonna violently react with an anaphylactic reaction. So we use a substance called papain, which is a derivative of papaya, to make our antivenom cleaner. As a result, we have about 5% of our patients have an anaphylactic reaction to Crofab. Before, it was about 75% of the patients had an anaphylactic reaction. So using that enzyme causes that possible contraindication.
Cool.
Long, difficult answer right there. Man, you asked a hard one. Thanks for that. Yes, ma'am?
So say like I live in the country about 15 miles out. If my child who's 4 gets bit or I get it for some reason, do I call the EMS or do I drive her, or is it better if the EMS comes and they can start treating her right away, or how does that work?
I would call EMS. Get the medical professionals out there that can stabilize you, give you fluids, check your heart rate, and keep you stable. Absolutely, I would depend on them. They're trained, they're medical professionals. I would trust them a lot more than I trust me or somebody else. My daughter or something like that. So that's who I would trust.
Would EMS carry this anti-venom?
It's about $2,700. It has to be refrigerated. It can't be shaken. And those big trucks typically shake quite a bit. And EMSs typically don't have a lot of extra money to spend to buy Crofab. So it's only going to be found in hospitals. The only place that possibly has it EMS-wise is in Florida. It's a place called Venom 1, I believe. And only because the state of Florida has so many crazy snakes out there, and people that bring in crazy snakes, they have a ton of antivenoms, and they're able to fly them around to anywhere that needs them. But there's no need for EMS trucks to have them. As long as they get the patient to hospital, that's all they need to do. Transport them there, keep them stable, and they're doing their job. Right, guys? Yes, ma'am.
What was the third thing? Pineapple, papaya, and...
Or an enzyme called bromelain, which is found in some of those types of fruits. Is anybody allergic to pineapple or papaya in here? It's a very rare food allergy, but it is out there. One of my nurses actually had it one time.
How does America stand with the rest of the world and snakes?
I would think Australia and Africa and Southeast Asia would be a lot worse than America. Some of those snakes and creatures in Australia are just nuts. They'll kill you so fast. So I don't think ours are as deadly. I think we just have some hard-headed folks that like to play with snakes and get bit.
So your product, is there no competitor?
There's going to be one coming out next year. It's made in Mexico as opposed to being made in North America. We use 4 snakes from America. They're actually found here. They're using snakes from Central America and from Mexico. We inject our venom into sheep, which has been shown to be more advantageous in terms of side effects to humans. You don't have as many with sheep. They're using horse, which is what the previous antivenom used, and the one that had such the high side effects. So, and it's only indicated for rattlesnakes, not for all North American pit vipers, but it is coming out in 2018.
And the reason I ask is, do you have to tell the hospital when you get there which one you want? That kind of thing.
No. So right now, the only ones out there is Crofab, and then once that product comes out, hospitals will decide which one they want to keep, and then if you get bitten, they'll determine, all right, that's the one that we're going to give, so that's the only one they're going to have. Most hospitals will not carry both products because they're going to be so expensive to carry. They're going to have to make a choice.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
If it's a non-venomous snake, I missed the very first part of your presentation. They won't have pits then, or they will, or how do you know if it's like venomous or a pit viper, I guess?
So the first part of my presentation was, I think all snakes are deadly. Now the other way. Your non-venomous snakes are definitely not going to have the triangular-shaped head or the heat-sensing pit. That's why I call pit vipers. That's their signature feature. But it's so weird. There's some actually non-venomous snake. I think the bull nose, or hog nose snake. Is anybody familiar with that? It actually flattens its head out when it looks like a cobra. That's what you'll hear. And then if that doesn't work, it'll roll over and play dead and play possum on you. So you can't always just determine that that's the triangular-shaped head, because if that head flattens out, to me, that's going to look like a triangle. I'm going to be so yeah.
I kill all of them, but everyone's like, oh, no.
Yeah, ask questions later.
If I can go back after my heart rate is slowed down and I've gotten over the fear of the snake and I try to go back and find them, I'll try to kill them, but they're usually off faster than I am, so.
Is there a product that will stun them? I mean, like you keep wasp spray around. Is there something that is out there?
Not that I'm aware of.
So you can stun them and then go get your hoe or
maybe
your
that's what you use the taser gun for. Instead of shocking yourself,
Right.
you tase the mess out of the snake and get them to go away. Yeah, I'm not aware of that, so.
That's a shame.
It is a
Somebody
shame.
else figured it out.
It is a shame. Yes, sir.
Put your hat down. Put your hat.
For a couple of years now, I've been using a snake grabber device. They make them in Florida. First class aluminum, stainless steel construction, about 5 feet long, strong jaws that securely grab it, easy to keep it closed on a snake. And then I identify it. I don't want to kill a blue runner or a king snake or any of the other natural enemies. They're helping keep the venomous snake population under control.
I completely agree with that. Completely agree with that. And I also have to agree, even though I hate them, your venomous snakes play a role too. They're going to eat mice. They're going to eat rats. They're going to keep some of that population down. I think if we eliminate all venomous snakes, we'd have a problem with other things happening. They're going to play a role, but they do cause issues, or I guess we cause issues when we come into contact together and we have that bad interaction. The good thing is, again, only 6 people die per year, usually from refusal of treatment or being too drunk to know to get to the hospital. If you get bit, there is a course of treatment. The most common side effects of the antivenom I'm talking about are urticaria, rash, and pruritus, which for common everyday people means itchiness and scratchiness. You're going to have a little minor skin irritation. I can handle that adverse event if I'm stopping my hand from being chopped off. All right, so there's going to be a treatment out there that works, it's safe, that's been around for 15 years, it's been studied tremendously. There's lots of studies out there on this antivenom. So just put your mind at ease. One, you're not going to possibly get bit. There's only 9,000 bites a year. 2, you're going to survive. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you're in the hospital and they give you the antivenom, and some people, if they're allergic to it, and you go, they can treat that now. I mean, they can see that you're going to go. Ugh.
Oh yeah, if they'll see you crash pretty quickly.
Can you do something now?
Absolutely, they can do it medically, and they can do it with a mechanical intervention as well. I mean, if your airway starts to close, they can get in there and open that airway up and make sure you keep breathing. So they're definitely trained to do that.
Well, I had a cousin who, in the 1980s, was bitten, and she was taken to the hospital. They gave her an antivenom, and she was immediately dead.
Oh yeah, that's the one I was talking about. It caused bodies to overreact to the antivenom, and it was not a good
So
thing
we
at
don't
all.
have that anymore.
That one's no longer being sold. It's no longer out there at all. At all. Yeah, I hate to hear that story. That's one of the reasons why our product was approved so fast back in 2000, because once it came on the market, that other one completely stopped being produced.
And I might also add, I live out in the country, okay? And I would recommend everybody who, before you sit down on a commode, to check your commode. Snakes in my home.
Oh my God, that's like
It was, but, you know.
a nightmare movie right there. Oh my God.
Very, very bad.
Wow.
They get it right, but
Yeah, I would not want to get bitten in that toilet.
Always check.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to see that tissue progression at all. Yes, sir.
Well, when you started out, there are only 4. That's the bottom line, there are only 4.
Venomous types of snakes. Yep. Rattlesnakes, copperheads, water moccasins, and coral snakes. And
They're
Crofab.
all fairly easily identified, besides the moccasin, I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, me either.
But the other 3 is not that hard to identify. Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
That picture you had of a water moccasin on the screen,
That's what I thought.
the ones that are around here.
Yeah, that's what I
That
thought.
color.
That's what I thought it was. That's why when I made the slide deck, that's what I thought it was. And then when our app came out, and then I saw a snake guy, I was like, oh my God, I'm kind of wrong there. So I need to change that.
Charcoal almost color.
Mhm.
But it's been a long time since I've seen one.
Well, I want to thank you guys for your attention, for your questions. I'm going to stay around. If you have other questions, please feel free. That app, Snakebite 911, is free and open to anyone. But I'll be happy to come answer questions as well. Thank you guys very much.